Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 53 of the Whitey and Wilson Sports Show. Today is Sunday, November 20th, 2022. And last week we had the girls basketball coaches from Effingham and St. Anthony and Teutopolis on to preview their basketball season. So it's only fair. We've got the boys coaches from the same schools joining us for the second straight year. We kind of joked about it, but it's not really a joke last week that it's kind of surprising that we can talk all these people into doing this a second time. Like the first time, they're kind of like, I don't really know what's going on, but I better say yes to this. The second time around, it's much more impressive that Mike can still talk all these guys into it. But we've got Obie Farmer from Effingham High School. Obie, if you want to give us a little wave, say hello. There's Obie and Cody Rincker from St. Anthony down in the lower left of my screen anyway. And Chet from Teutopolis. All right. These guys are returning guests to the show, Mike, which puts them already in rare company, not too many.
Yep, they're in rare air.
And we're going to give each of them a chance today to give us a little preview of their teams. Boys basketball season gets underway for some people tomorrow at the St. Anthony Turkey Tournament. I know all three of these teams are a part of that tournament. A prepared show host would not have to be clicking around on his computer screen right now to find out that T-Town and St. Anthony play tomorrow, and Effingham kicks off Tuesday night at the Turkey Tournament. So we'll get into all that a little bit, but thanks guys for joining us. And right before we went on, I did my highly scientific method again of deciding what order we're going to let these guys talk in. And Mike, you joked about letting Obie go first. Well, I drew Effingham out of my hat first. Chet's going to go second, and we're going to make Cody Rincker go last. So that's the way we're going to do it. But Obie, we'll start with you as far as the Effingham High School boys basketball team. You guys coming off of a 10-win season. I know you're looking to improve there in what is going to be your fourth full season. You lost some guys that you counted on quite a bit last year, but I know that you've got some pieces that you're excited about coming back. So, tell me who we leaning on this year. Who's going to be leading the charge for the Hearts this season?
Well, our lone starter coming back is Garrett Wolf. He's the last of the Wolf brothers. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what we're going to do next year. I think we're just going to cut basketball after we don't know how to play without them. So we've got Garrett. He's our senior point guard. Like I said, he's our lone returning starter. But we've got guys with some experience. We've had guys last year and the year before that had come in and given us minutes here and there. When we had injuries, Logan Heil is a 6'3", 6'4" football player playing basketball. A big wide body kid, about 230 pounds, and moves people around. So we're really interested to see what he can do this year. He came in last year when Braden Powell's was hurt. He tore up his knee, and Logan came in for a stretch. Gave us good minutes. It was a different dynamic for sure. We get a lot stronger when he's in. Then we've got Spencer Fox, who had a whole bunch of JV minutes last year, an athletic kid, plays the 3 or the 4. We got a couple other seniors that are going to come in and fill those other roles. But we've got kids that can shoot it. We got kids that can attack the basket. All of them can play defense, and we've got a few coming off the bench that can do all the same. So we've lost some guys that can do some scoring. Jet Volpe and Braden and Dalton and Ethan graduated, those 4 guys that did good things for us. But talking with our assistant coaches, I feel like we've got 8 to 10 guys that could score 10 points a night, on any given night. So where we were leaning on some of those guys for shooting ability and their ability to get to the basket last year, we a little bit different dynamic. We can spread it out a little bit more, look for our shots, because if you pass up an open shot, your next teammate is just as capable. So I feel like we've got more weapons than we did last year. Maybe we go a little deeper in the bench. But it should be interesting to see how our rotation shakes out, because I'm still not sure who's going to get what minutes here and there. It takes a couple games to get that figured out because practices aren't anything like games.
Sure. Now, Garrett was probably never even close to 100% last year. He was coming off of some injuries, and you could tell just by looking
like
at him.
a pirate. That's the thing I want to know. Does he got 2 legs this year?
I don't know. You'll just have to see, I guess.
He was always, I mean, from the start, just heavily wrapped. Obviously it took a little bit of work to get him going. How is? I mean, I know he played footballs and everything, so I assume that he is in a better place physically this year for you.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get any smarter. He still rode bulls in the off season, but yeah, he played a full football season. We weren't sure how he was going to do in that. Me coaching football as well, I was interested to see how he'd be able to do through the fall. And he did good things for us. I mean, he played wide receiver position and ran routes and beat people to position and caught passes and scored touchdowns. So, you'd like to think that he'd be able to do basketball stuff on the court as well. Last year, it was more than just being hurt. I think it was mentally he struggled with going 100%. He had a screw. You feel his leg. He had a screw sticking out the side of his leg. You can feel it. It was like pressed on the end of a pencil. The whole season. That's what had that pad on the side of there. He was worried about hitting it on the ground or whatever. But he played through it. And even with one leg, there were games where he had 25 points. So, like I said, we're excited to see what he can do, with 2 legs this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was your leading scorer last year, despite all of that. And, you mentioned Logan Heil, you mentioned his size, and not to turn this into discussing guys on the football field and how that translates to basketball every time. But that's another guy. Like, I noticed just the way he played on the football field this year. He's physically different as a senior than he was as a junior. He seems like he did a lot of work on himself between years.
Yeah, he's strong as an ox. He's like a grown man playing out there with kids now. We'll do drills where Coach Tun and Coach Joan and I will step in and play like dummy defense down in the post. And when he gets in, I'm tagging out. I'm letting somebody else get in there and play with him because I'm just going to get hurt. Just his size and just throwing his body around and just imposing his will at practice. These poor kids, they give up 40 pounds to him. And like I said, he's just used to that contact from the football field. He's more confident with contact on the football team, and that's carried over to the basketball team as well.
We got Mike.
I think the big thing I want to see is even with Garrett being hampered last year, I still remember at the Christmas tournament, and I forget who I was talking to, Oak Lawn coach or Lincoln Way, one of them, but they knew the history of his injury a little bit, and they were just shocked at him getting on the floor after loose balls. Oh, okay, he's hurt. He's going to be limited. He's playing. He's trying to do what he can do, but it didn't stop that part of his game. And I think that's the thing I think that amazed a lot of people. And I'm excited to see him healthy. I told his dad, I said, I still question the boar. I said, I'd eat those bowls. I wouldn't keep riding for God's sakes. But yeah, it's amazing that he has come back from the injuries he had.
Yeah, I mean, he broke both bones in his lower leg and dislocated his ankle and tore up a bunch of ligaments and had bones floating around in there and all kinds of stuff. You'd mentioned the Christmas tournament. By then, they'd gone back to the doctor a couple times and talked to him about his ability to play and is there anything that he should be doing to help him play better and get closer to 100%. And that's when the doctor had to assure him that he'd be fine. And I think he took a step after that, after the doctor assured him that he'd be okay to play. He took a big step up and started sacrificing his body a little bit more on the basketball court, like you said, diving after balls and taking charges and being a little bit more physical. Running was still pretty hampered, but he was doing all those other things that we count on from tough players.
Yeah, he relied, it seemed like, and I remember doing you guys when you played down in Albany in the regional, he was he is still at that point was pretty limited to north and south.
Right.
Being able to maneuver north and south, he didn't have that shiftness, that he used to have, and that's what I want to see back. I'll be looking forward to seeing it this week.
Yeah, his biggest thing all year was, playing the point position when people would pressure us. He had a hard time getting away from pressure, because he could only push off of or retreat with one leg. And I think a lot of teams saw that and took advantage of it, rightfully so. We all would. But that's not a factor this year. So I'm excited to see how he handles the ball and takes charge in the games and how that changes our dynamic offensively, being able to beat pressure.
Is there anybody you're replacing 4 starters, like you said?
Mhm.
Anybody else in particular that you've noticed taking a big step forward in their game? Somebody that you're really expecting to surprise some people that maybe they just don't realize that this kid can be that much of a varsity contributor?
Yeah, we've got, like I said, we've got a bunch of them. We got a couple of young guys, got a couple of sophomores. Brody Belcher played a lot of JV minutes last year. His problem was, he's 6'2", knocking on the door of 6'3", and he plays a guard spot. The problem last year was he weighed 103 pounds, and he couldn't do anything physically. But now, he's worked on his body a little bit. You start to work closer to that man body. So he's getting closer in that aspect. And, we got a couple seniors. Gunnar Brown handles the ball well and plays a utility guard. He can do anything from the 1 to the 3. So he knows, all the positions, all the sets and all those spots, and is ready to play. He's just shorter than most of them. But you couldn't tell with how hard he plays and his toughness. Andrew Donaldson was a shooting guard on the JV squad last year. And over the summer, he was probably our most consistent player. And we relied on him a lot, attacking the basket and finding him. He was wide open and knocking down the shots he should. Ethan Jones is another sophomore who's 6'2", and plays like a 4, and has been doing pretty good things for us. You just keep going down the line, and then Logan and like I said, Spencer and Garrett, and we got a couple freshmen that are 6'4" and 6'5", and we got another freshman that's 6 foot that plays a guard spot. Like, we have a lot of guys that I feel like we might be able to play this year. But like I said, they haven't been battle tested. They haven't been in a game yet. They just do good things in practice, and they've done good things over the summer. So it's really, like I said, we're interested to see how it's going to shake out too, because we really don't know.
As far as the Apollo goes, last year, obviously a tough run for you guys in league play. It was kind of the conference itself was kind of a slog. You had Lincoln at the top, but then lots of teams kind of hovering right around 500 after that. How's it looking this year? Anybody looking to take a turn, or is it still going to be kind of Lincoln in its last year, sort of being the team to beat?
You always have to give Lincoln their credit and have to pay attention to them, because they've won the conference every year since they've been in it, besides the 1 year that we won. And then Mount Zion's got, last year they started 3 freshmen, and they were ridiculously talented freshmen. And then they've got a group of freshmen coming in this year that everybody says is more talented than last year's freshmen. They got 6'7" shooting guards and 6'5" post players that are wide body kids that are doing good things. And then Muhammad had 12 juniors last year, and you expect them to be able to fill the same roles as they did last year. So they were really good last year with all those juniors and having all those guys back. I think they only graduated 1 senior. So they're tough. We have new coaches in the conference with Charleston and Matt Toon, so you don't know anything about what kind of basketball they're going to be playing. And you have new coaches, it's always tough to scout and figure out what they're going to do. So there's that aspect of a team being difficult to beat. And then last year we had a couple really good battles with Taylorville. We lost to him in double or triple overtime one time, and then lost to him on a buzzer beater the next time. So, we did lose a lot of games in conference, but if you look at all the scores, it wasn't like we were getting abused. We were in every game. It was just that we just let them get away from us. 1 or 2 boneheaded mistakes, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, I was going to say, 10 wins is a little deceiving from what I saw last year, just because it seemed like every game of yours that I did on the radio, it was just a nip and tug game. And couple of things go your way here and there, you are talking about, a closer to a 500 record. And that's
Right.
obviously how it goes, and how you do in those situations is important. So it'd be interesting to see, how this year's group handles those situations whenever they are confronted with them.
Yeah, and we talk about 10 wins all the time. We use it as bulletin board material, and we use it as a motivator, and the kids don't want to repeat it.
Sure.
The same stuff we did last year. So they've been working harder, and they've been more focused than we were last year. And I'm hoping that makes a big difference when you see us on game night.
Very good. Mike, you got anything else before we move on to Chet?
No, that's good.
All right, Coach Reeder, you're on the clock here. T-Town coming off of a super sectional appearance last year. Had a very, very successful year, 26-8, and you're going to be in your 5th season. You've already racked up 92 wins, and you have you've got your top 2 scorers coming back. So a lot of things to be excited about with your team. I mean, it's T-Town, so there were a lot of seniors on the roster. There always, there generally are, but you've got a pretty good base to work with coming back in to your 5th year.
Yeah. First of all, you talked about us coming back on the show. It's always blessed to, us coming back on means that we were rehired. So I coached with a guy a long time. And he said, you really haven't been coaching until you've been fired. So every year is a great opportunity. But yeah, we having Brendan and Caleb back, and Jimmer, James Nieberge, our 3 returning starters. We expect them to take their game to a new level. They all 3 of them put in a lot of time this summer to improve their weaknesses, and we're expecting great things out of them this year.
Caleb Seamer he's just become an increasingly difficult player for your opposition to deal with, because he has the size, but then there's the mobility too, right? Like, he's not just a big hulking kid in the middle that doesn't really move around that well. He's got actual game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he surprises you with his his agility. He can move laterally. He's not gifted vertically. And we get on him about that a lot, but he can move. He can get up and down the floor. What's rarely underrated about him is he's a great passer. And he has shown, this summer and these first 2 weeks of practices, he's shown to be a willing passer. He's not just forcing things like he did at times last year, but we still need him to force some things. But he's finding open guys. He's recognizing double teams. We've thrown a lot at him in these first 2 weeks because we know other teams are going to throw a lot at him, just to kind of get him prepared. And he's seeing the right things. He's making the right passes when he needs to, and trusting his teammates are going to get the ball back to him.
We talk about Brendan and we talk about Caleb, and there's 25 points a game from last year just between the 2 of them. But, obviously the opportunities for guys like that don't exist without the play of, the supporting cast, and you are going to be replacing some faces. So, tell me about who's stepping up a little bit to, sort of fill out the lineup and fill out the rotation.
Well, we've got 12 guys on the varsity roster right now, and they've been ultra competitive. Practice has been a lot of fun because we just split them up evenly and just let them go at each other. But we got 2 other seniors and Logan Repke and Caleb Blummer, 2 guys that play 1,000 miles an hour. We joke, sometimes, gear it down from from fifth gear to fourth gear, at least, on the offensive end. But those two can really cause some havoc on the defensive end, bring a lot of energy. And if you're having a bad day, you talk to those two and you're instantly having a better day. They always got smiles on their faces, and they keep things upbeat for us, and they're good. Those two are good for me because I get grumpy sometimes, and they're quick to bring me back to reality. And then our junior class is very talented. We've got Garrett Gaddis, who's going to contribute, Joey Nieberge, Tyler Prummer, Mitch Custer. You got Zach Nieberge as well, Austin Blummer, and then Logan Lawson, who is our new principal's son. So we did get a move in, but we
portal.
Yeah. we expect some, I'm not going to lie. We're not going to play 12 guys. You're just not going to do that. You play 12 guys, then you're taking out, your 2-3 best players. But the good thing is practices have been very competitive. They push each other, they challenge each other. The other thing about Caleb that's underrated too is, his leadership, his voice. He is the anchor of our defense. He's always directing traffic. He fixes so many mistakes just by using his voice, and that's been evident in practice. He's, I was getting on the guys Thursday because they weren't talking, and almost everything we do is competitive. And Caleb's team wins 90% of the time, and it's because he talks. He directs traffic. He gets guys where they're supposed to be. So that's another great thing about what Caleb does for us.
That's got to be an invaluable tool to have a player that's willing to take that role and get on guys a little bit, so that you don't always have to be the bad guy, right? Somebody to let you off the hook every now and again.
Yeah, he really started doing more of that, after Christmas last year, and it helped our defense get to a new level. And hopefully he can help these guys, because right now we're not very good on that end right now. We're not where we need to be. We're not even close. But hopefully Caleb, with his voice and his experience, I think he'll help kids get to where we need them to be.
Couple things, Chet. First off, I cannot believe that Brendan Nieberge is a senior.
Yeah.
He used to live around the corner from me, and I'd see him out there as a little 4-year-old. His dad would be having him doing ball handling drills, and he was good. Yeah. As a 4 or 5-year-old, he could handle the ball. And you knew this kid's going to be a special player, and he really has become a pretty good young man, to say the least. Caleb Seymour, has he dropped a little weight, but yet I think he's stronger. I think he shifted.
He's definitely stronger, and he is. I don't know that he's dropped weight, but his body has changed.
His body's changed because he looks different.
Yeah. When you look at him, you think he looks thinner.
Yes.
But really, these guys have all committed. It started. They let us start athletic PE. It would have been Caleb, the senior class's freshman year. And so they get they lift 3 days a week, every day, all year long, so you're really starting to see the benefits really for all our guys, but it's cool to see where our seniors are at now once, having 4 years of it.
And, you mentioned your practice Thursday. That notoriously was the worst practice of the year at T-Town ever. I was always, I was there 6 years with Andy, and oh my God, this one, and it finally got to be. We actually had a couple of good practices near the end of that 6-year run, but yeah, their heads at deer camp. It was horrible. So, do you still see that distraction on that famous Thursday night practice?
Well, we we always prepare ourselves for that, because like, their mind is somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because they know they're off Friday and Saturday. But no, we actually had our best practice of the year on Thursday. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but they did. They had their best practice that we've had all year on that day.
And it's amazing because you're told, oh, this practice is going to be terrible. I'm like, well, I'm just going to stay at home.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer. I don't have to be, but I got to see this for myself. And the first couple of years, it was horrible. And then it kind of changed me. Yeah, it's amazing, and then come after that, it was always great. We'd come in that Sunday night and it'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's what we did. We came in at 2:00 today, and thankfully they did not look dead tired. They looked kind of refreshed. So I think they were hunting, but I think they took my advice and actually got some sleep too. So.
And I'd always make sure I got a little deer jerky out of that. I'd tell a couple of kids, hey, I can cut down on your running, little jerky.
Right.
Mike, he really sounds like a T-Town coach, by the way, coming in here telling us that his defense is nowhere close to where it needs to be. That's exactly what we heard last week from Lori.
Same thing we heard from Lori. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's rubbing off me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's worse people to be influenced by, that's for sure. No conference to ask you about, but is your schedule pretty much the same as last year? Anything changed with it? I haven't really had a chance to look.
No, so we picked up Mount Vernon, Danville, Olney, Prairie Central. We go to the Pinckneyville shootout. We don't know who we're playing there yet. And we're going to the Eureka College shootout again. And this year we play East Peoria, speaking of the transfer portal, picked up a 6'5" kid from Peoria Manual who's getting Division I looks. So Peoria is kind of becoming like the Metro East and Chicago, schools, kids go from school to school every year in that area too.
So quite a bit of change there. I assume you're getting you're getting quite a bit of input on that. I assume like those are, teams that you're saying you want to see, you'd like to get a chance to go up against.
Yeah, Lori does. Lori's a fantastic AD. She, our schedule is, she asked me what I want and what changes we want to make, and she's usually on board with it. It's really great working with her.
Mike, you got anything else for Chet?
Nope. I'm sure after I watch it next week, I'll say, hey, why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? But no, nothing now.
We'll have some whiteboard talks, I'm sure.
Yeah, hey, and here's what I'm going to tell you about our whiteboard talk last year. What is Brad Underwood doing?
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
He's scrambling all over the place.
That's right.
And Rincker still has my videos somewhere in that humongous coach's office. They stole them from me when I left. So Cody didn't steal them, but I still have never got those back. So.
You left them.
So let's shift gears to Cody Rincker. He's the grizzled veteran of the group, at least as far as how long he's been at his school. Cody is coming into this is your 10th season at St. Anthony. Is that right?
That's correct.
If you can hang on a little bit longer. Now, Dave Bartlett was there 11 years. That's the longest tenure for a boys basketball coach at St. Anthony. So you're moving into rarefied air here, and you've already. And I've got you at 201 wins. You could tell me if that's right or wrong. Maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but that's the winningest coach in school history too. So Cody is he's done some nice things at St. Anthony. Maybe won a state championship. I think people probably still remember that. But also made it to a sectional last year. 21 wins. Had a good group. You've got some scoring to replace, a couple of seniors that put a lot of points on the board for you last year that have moved on. But, I look at your club and you've got a lot of athletes back and a lot of kids that have been successful, not just on the basketball floor, but just pretty good all around athletes making up your roster this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about that. Like, we're still not really an experienced bunch as far as, grades in school. We only have 3 seniors there. But like you mentioned, we ended up starting several underclassmen there last year, and even started a freshman for the first time for the last half of the year. And that, like you mentioned, they're all around athletes. I think that's something that those, while our guys don't come from the football field into the basketball court, we talked about that just the other day about how, we're going to be playing football schools, not golf schools. So we had to talk about the physicality and matching that and everything. But what those 2 guys, John Willenberg and Michael Martelli, they kind of bring that same leadership. They understand what it takes to be successful in their sport and in a sport in general. So we're able to lean on them here a little bit, maybe more than what we had to last year. Obviously, Jonathan was hurt. So they're kind of bringing that experience and that maturity with them. Obviously, Griffin Stahey coming back here is our lone guy that started every single game there last year for us. Those 3 seniors, you definitely see a different mentality and a different urgency with them in practice so far. So that leadership's been much needed and greatly appreciated.
Griffin say he's a dynamic kid, right? Like, I mean, he's just as an athlete. I mean, out there on the floor, he's got he can handle it for you, obviously, but he's got some length to him. So he's a valuable kid to have out there on the perimeter. Is his role on the team going to change a little bit with him, him coming back and some of the graduation losses you've had, or do you anticipate using him kind of the same way?
Yeah, no, his role last year was more by necessity. I never really, the kid can handle the ball, like you said. He can play point for you if he has to, and that's what we had to have him do last year based on the makeup of our team and what our team needed. But this year, actually, he's our tallest player, one of our tallest players. So yeah, his role is going to change just a touch. We're going to hopefully get him out more on the wing and allow him to free up, and hopefully, get a few more shots off than he did last year. But time will tell. We'll see how that actually works out for us.
Well, and you mentioned starting a freshman last year. That's Brock Fearday. That's who we're talking about. And he kind of just got thrown in the fire because you had some injuries to compensate for. And so there were some slots open. And he just went out there and put the ball in the bucket when he got some extended minutes. And that was it. He played his way into a starting position and never really let it go. What kind of growth did you see from him from day one to the end of the season?
The thing about Brock is his mentality, the way he goes about it, the way he plays, the way that he doesn't really seem to let moments get too big for him. He's out there competing. He's an excellent competitor, whether it's in practice or we're playing a summer game or we're playing an actual game. The way he approaches it, is probably what I saw and liked the most about him, and how he probably earned his way into that lineup. As far as growth, though, defensively is where he grew the most. That's probably what keeps every freshman and younger kids back is one, size and maturity. That always plays a factor, but then the ability to go out there and actually guard the way that we need to guard other teams. So that was probably his biggest improvement, which also allowed him to find the court there and keep himself on the court there for the last season.
But never really overwhelmed by the moment, I don't think, at least as far as I could tell. Like it didn't seem like it fazed him too much to get out there on the floor. Now some kids maybe you can't tell, or maybe it shows up, on the sideline or in the huddle, during timeouts and stuff, but I don't think so, right? Like it pretty unflappable as far as I could tell.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's a competitive kid. He's out there playing a game and doesn't seem to take in all the surroundings and all the moments and everything. He's out there playing to win, and doesn't matter, what sport it is. Say the same thing about him on the baseball field. He just goes out there and does what he has to do. I think the only moment, there was probably a couple moments. I thought maybe the NTC championship game was a game you saw him be a little shaky and a little unconfident. And then the sectional final game there late, there was a moment that kind of got to him, but that's also, that could just happen. That could be any other player that loses the ball there later, commits a silly turnover. But Other than that, he was pretty much steady Eddie for us, throughout the season.
Well,
Cody, in that your NTC semifinal game last year, he probably hit the shot that kind of sealed the game. That was such a great ball game back and forth, and it wasn't a freshman. There was he rose up, buried that three, and it wasn't like, a kick out, he's wide open, checking the wind, shooting it. He caught it, went up, got contested, and buried it. And it was just at that point, when I saw him, the times I saw him, I thought, man, that was a coming of age shot right there.
Yeah, especially because if you rewind that tape a minute earlier, he misses a shot from a similar spot. So then to come back a minute later, not hesitate, not think about it, and just catch it in a rhythm and shoot it. Yeah, that was kind of a moment there. It's like, hey, we have a chance to have a pretty good player here. So like I said, we'll see though. It's just, they're still young and they're still high school kids. So, but yeah, definitely some moments there that give you some hope for the future.
So, similar question I've asked some of these other guys, but somebody you're looking, or maybe multiple people that you're looking to see that next step from as far as their game goes and an expanded varsity role.
I think the one of the people you could start off with there is Griffin. Like you said there, he scored when he had to, but really was just kind of our game manager last year. So that's somebody that right off the bat, we always ask our seniors to lead us and be a guy that's gonna, be consistently around that 10 to 15 points would be, really nice to see, because that's not quite where he was last year. And hopefully, like I said, with a little bit of a role change and some other guys improving will allow him to have some more of that freedom. So Griffin's definitely a guy that we're calling on and asking on to do some of that stuff for us. Some of the guys that you may not have, I think Colin Wessendorf was a kid last year as a sophomore that had a kind of a breakout game there against Rantoul in the turkey tournament, and then got hurt the very next game, and was just in and out of the injury report. So he never quite got into the flow of the season, but that's a guy here that if he can stay healthy again, that we can see some things from him off the bench or even maybe in the starting role. I think Max Koenig was a guy that we started a lot, and again, just kind of in that we had some injuries, and like I said, he had a breakout game against Rantoul as well, and it was just kind of a glue guy there for us last year. So it'll be nice to see him increase some of his scoring output in different ways of that nature. But I don't know. Then we got some guys, like I said, that were just young. Ryan Schmidt, the sophomore, who had a great JV year last year. Sam Link, same thing. He's a sophomore, had a good JV year for us, and they were just a little bit like, so we had enough guys there that we didn't have to bring them up too early. But those are two guys that we're looking for having, giving us something off the bench. Being guys that we can go 8, 9 deep, possibly 10 deep here early on in the season to see what we have. It's just kind of going to be a wait and see, kind of like Obie said, that we don't know until we get to the games, because there's just a lot of guys that don't have that true varsity experience. And I guess the guy to mention here, I think maybe I didn't mean to lie or lead us out earlier before we started here, but Rudaball is kind of a question mark X factor. He's currently injured. He had tore up his shoulder there playing tennis a few years ago and finally got it taken care of here. So we'll see. He's on an undetermined indefinite timeline for us here at the moment. So
you think you may get him back this year, Cody?
There's a chance.
Okay, because there was at times last year he'd have games where when I'd see you guys play, I really liked what I saw out of him, and then I think there was other times he kind of just, you didn't notice him being, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't doing anything wrong. You just didn't notice him being out there. Other times he was very noticeable in games on some things he did.
Yeah, so I think potentially that injury had a little bit to do with that. I don't think he ever wanted to admit how hurt he really was until he went to play tennis again this year, and then realized he couldn't even do that. So he, as a teenage kid, you don't want to admit you're too hurt, because then you got to sit out and not do things. So we'll see how that kind of plays a factor into it. And I think it was just a transition year. He came in and went to a new school, so you're getting acclimated with all the academic part of it as well, and the social part of it. So this summer he had a pretty good summer until he finally realized, like, hey, I got to go get this injury taken care of. He just seemed more comfortable, grew a little bit. So yeah, I'd be excited to have him back at some point in the season, but if not, we're hoping he gets healthy, and he's just a junior, so we'll see what that brings.
Now, Cody, you guys were able to run the table in the NTC last year, but there's going to be some formidable opponents on the conference schedule this year. I'm kind of wondering if the Altamont game in January is already sold out, or is that in February? It's
that's the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I figure that's going to be an in-demand ticket for sure, but there's still going to be some pretty tough competition there in league play. I think not just Altamont, but especially Altamont. That's the one that jumps out to me.
Right. Like I said, we're a different team. I mean, I don't have a Caleb Seamer or a Logan Heil or a Coleman, type player that maybe I've had over the past 10 years. I mean, I could go down the list for you, but I feel like I've always had somebody that I've been able to, put in the paint and help us when we've maybe been broken down defensively and protecting that hoop. We don't really have a guy like that. Even Kyle Stewart, last year changed or worked his way into that type of person for us. So, to go up against, think about Altamont there, like I said, in the conference with a guy who has, some size and some strength and can post up down there and kind of control the boards. We'll have to find some different ways to go about that, or to create some havoc so we can generate some offense in some different ways than maybe we've been used to. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that matches up with the conference opponents and how effective we can be.
What else you got, Mike?
That's one of the things with the conference. I mean, your conference I thought was extremely strong last year. I mean, it really was. I mean, I thought you had a really good chance of having two teams playing for a sectional final, and seeing as many games I saw at the NTC I hadn't seen in a while. I was very impressed. You lost a lot of kids, but man, you got a lot of these good kids from the conference who are coming back this year. And you talked about Griffin say he's role changing, as athletic and as long as he is. I know you used him kind of as a shutdown de facto defender at times. Hey, you got this guy, you got no help, responsibilities, you're here. Are you going to be able to even do that with Griffin? I mean, you may have another kid who can fill that role, but I just think with his size and length
that he can still do that. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, that end's got to happen first. We got to take care of that end first before we can think about offense. So that still may be something we've asked him to do is take away a best player here or there. But at the same time, we have some of the guys with some length and athleticism that may be able to fulfill that role who we aren't also asking to score, consistently for us as well. So yeah, again, that's what tomorrow night we'll start to figure out those types of things.
So Mike, you got anything else for Cody, or do we want to?
No, I'd like, touch a couple things on Chet. Tomorrow night you have who?
Rantoul.
You got Rantoul. And Cody, who do you have tomorrow night?
Robinson.
And Chet and Obie, who you play Tuesday, your first game?
Bree Central.
Okay. Because Robinson, we joke about the transfer portal. They got Mac Thompson, got a nice kid. Well, on paper, a nice kid that's moved in from North Lawndale. And I remember coaching against North Lawndale back in the day. They were pretty salty.
Yeah, saw that too there on whatever he posted his roster there on Facebook, whatever it was. So yeah, we'll see. They've got a lot of nice kids. I really think with the Lowell kid coming back, the Gilmore kid who's now a junior, that Parker kid there who transferred in, the Jackson kid started for 4 years now. The Werns kid started last year, plus all those juniors and sophomores, they were fairly good at had a fairly good JV year as well. Mac's own son there, Thompson kid coming off the bench potentially, or maybe starting. I have no idea where they're going to go with that, but I think this is I think it could be as deep as Robinson team and as talented a Robinson team as they've had in a while. So I'm sure Mac will be chomping at the bit to get out there tomorrow night and put it to us. So we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely not a walk-in game as none of us have here to walk into the season and just roll the balls out and start playing. So
no, and it'll be a good good to get to see a couple of games, get the boys' season off on the right foot. Anything I don't think there was any rule changes or anything this year, profound changing anything.
Hand checks. That was the point of emphasis. Hand checks.
That's been a point of emphasis for 22 years.
That's our whole
So is
defense.
it a hand check that they're actually going to call it, or they'll let you, you can
We
blow
gotta
a
play
guy's
zone 'cause I don't
back?
know how to teach
What's the
defense without
rule?
hand checks.
Huh?
Said we got to play zone because I don't know how to teach defense without hand checks.
I mean, see, Crawford didn't have hand checks. He taught him how to hold jersey where you couldn't see the hand. I mean, they knew how to twist so you didn't see the hand on the.
I remember we played when my senior year, we opened up with T-Town at the Lawrenceville tournament. And my brother was the assistant coach, and he asked that night, he asked Coach Crawford, how do you guys get away with fouling on defense? And Coach Crawford said, well, we just tell our kids to hand check every play, and the officials can't call them all.
That's
kind of what's that? The Seattle Seahawks from back in the glory days, right?
Pass interference on every
Can't call
play.
pass interference every time, right? So,
so nothing. Now the shot clock. They give you the option on the shot clock, and I don't know. I have not heard of any tournaments around here adopting it. It's coming next year. It's got to be. If they're giving you the option, it's like when the 3-point shot. I remember we went to the Charleston Holiday Tournament when I was on Bartlett's staff at St. Anthony, and we got to use it at the Charleston Holiday Tournament. Of course, then the next year you had it. So it's got to be coming next year, isn't it?
I know the Benton shootout is going to use it. Is going to use the shot clock. That's the only place that I've heard of that's using it. But
what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, somebody say something spicy here.
I think it probably is coming. I personally think it's good for basketball, but I just don't see how I think of some of these small schools that can barely get somebody to run the clock for them, and running the shot clock is not just turning the switch on and off. You got to pay attention. You got to know who has possession. And then we're also asking these officials to figure that out too. I think it's coming. But I'll be interested to see how it's implemented, how it's, how schools can do it. And you gotta pay for another scoreboard too,
Yep. You got to pay a person to work the table.
But I think it's good for basketball. My first year we held the ball for 4 minutes against Mount Carmel, and I shouldn't be able to do that. I think it is good for the sport, but I'll be curious to see how it's implemented.
Yeah, but you earn lifelong fans at Mount Carmel that night.
You darn right.
I was at a indoor track meet at Carbondale, listening to it on the radio and saying, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, they're still holding the ball." Nothing.
Yeah, my wife had some choice words for me when I got home. She said, "If you're going to do something like that, you got to let me know." People around me were,
and I'll say this about it. I coached against Cody back when I played. We used it in practice. My managers, every time we got a rebound, bang, we put it to 26 seconds, I think, 30 seconds. Because we wanted to get transition into stuff. So we practiced with it. And we were up tempo when I coached, always very up tempo. I just think it's a logistical nightmare, like you mentioned. I mean, you've got to have somebody at the table who's focused on that. They're not watching the game. They're not caught up in anything on the game. And you got to have officials, and you don't have the replay to go to when you got to screw up with it. I watched today, the Illinois game. They had to reset this late in the game. They had to reset it. And it's just, I understand why people want it, but I think it's logistics. It's going to be a problem. And I think the other thing, you're going to just see a lot more bad shots taken quicker. That's from a guy that loved to make it a track meet every year.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Like I said, the logistics of it doesn't make sense. I don't know if this makes any sense either, though. Maybe they already have it in the AAU circuit. They already have the shot clock in. I would imagine if they don't, that would be the place for me to say that's the area you need it and leave the rest of the high school sports alone, because they're, more than likely those are the players that are going to go use the shot clock, the higher percentage of them than our 1A, 2A, 3A basketball players around Central Illinois. But I realize we're not everywhere. It's a big state and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, logistically, that was the reason, we could have put in, in our tournament here, could obviously every tournament had a chance to apply for it, to use it. And it didn't even cross, my mind to even go down that road here. So.
Yeah, I think the officials are the people that I would be most concerned about, because I mean, Mike, you and I have, we've done this show where we talk to some local officials, and it's there's already a lot of pressure there, and there's a pressure,
there's a shortage.
Yeah, you're having a tough time finding people who want to do it the way it is.
I think you're just giving more uninformed fans a reason to scream and yell at an official.
But I do also see the merit in what Chet's saying, is that, there's, if kids want to play at the next level, especially, that's going to be a fact of life sooner or later. So there is that. And I don't know, it's not going to be like if they do it, it's not going to be a college, it's probably going to be
but if you're worried about somebody playing, hell, the late Gary Shirley and his 45 pass offense, we made them run up and down the floor one night. His kids loved it. He hated it, and they're like, "This is awesome, coach." No, it's not. We're getting our ass beat. Quit running. And hey, let's go, boys. This is fun. Look, you get to take quick shots.
So something else.
You can get people, you can speed people up. Even the night Chet held it in that game, they just had to decide to go out and not let him do it. And they didn't want to because they were big. They were bigger than you inside, weren't they, Chet?
Yeah. They had the can't think of his name now.
Yeah, the big, but they were
Marcotte. They still have Marcotte. That much.
Yeah, they still had Marcotte. They weren't built to go out and pressure and chase people. So, okay, we're not going to play your game and let you stand in the zone, and we're just going to keep chucking threes. You're not going to come out of your zone. We're not afraid to hold it for a while. So, it becomes a double-edged sword. Both coaches, when people say, "Oh, they held the ball," you can let them, make them right. Kevin Long at CPCI, they were famous for going to their four-corner offense. Man, that was his bread and butter. And he got me down in the shootout, and I sent in the crazy bomb squad guys, and 6 straight turnovers later, we were back in the ball game, and their kids are like, "What the hell just happened?" They'd never played against Anthony Heck and Blake Kerner and Danny Winkler before, who thought there was like free food on the floor or something. Those kids were going crazy, and get them out of it.
Something that's come up a couple of times already with coaches talking about individual players is kids undergoing pretty noticeable physical changes from one year to the next. And that's high school sports, man. That's kind of the thing. Like, from one year to the next, you never know for sure what you can expect out of a team, because you will always have a kid or two that just comes in to practice for the first, or comes into workouts and they have just they've just become a man at some point in the last few months, right? I mean, there's always going to be a couple of kids that are surprising contributors. And Obie, maybe that's more of a football thing. Maybe I'm still just in football mode, but I think it translates to basketball sometimes too, right?
Yeah, and it's the weight room. It's not a mistake. It didn't just happen on accident. It depends on what you're putting in your body and what you're doing with your body. It makes a big difference. We've got weightlifting. Just like Chet was saying, we lift 3 days a week, and then we do our plyometrics and agilities on one day, and then we do our explosiveness stuff on another day, and that's our week of class, and we do it every week. And the football kids come in at 6 a.m. in January and start going, and then we lift all summer, and it's an endless job. They don't ever stop. And then between their sophomore and junior year, you see it start to take hold. It just takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes work.
Yep. One thing, and I know we're butting up against how long we told you guys that we'd eat up your Sunday evening here, but something I gave the girls coaches a chance to do, and I think we should do here too, is that, and I think that I probably forgot to do last year, was just ask each of you guys to tell me about who's on your staff this year, and what their what roles they fill for you on the bench. I think that's an overlooked thing, from the fan and even the broadcaster's perspective. We get pretty focused on you guys because your names are at the top of the list, but I know it takes a village. And so I thought I'd give you all a chance to maybe give your guys a shout out, and we can go, and whoever wants to jump in and just go around the table.
Yeah. So at Effingham, it seems like the last 4 or 5 years has kind of been a revolving door with, when I went from being a freshman coach to the JV to the varsity in a matter of 3 months, and then moving guys in JV and moving guys in fresh soft, and it's kind of been a continuing trend. Guys will come in for a year and then have to resign due to whatever. We've always had young coaches that came in and helped, and life takes hold, and they have to up and move because of work or starting their family or taking classes or whatever. So it's been a revolving door, but I'm hoping that we've settled in a little bit, at least at the JV and varsity level. We do have a new coach at the JV varsity level, and Jeff Tunn. He had coached in the junior high for a number of years, and then he coached softball. He just knows fundamentals. He's kind of my voice of reason. Even this summer, you get a little fired up during summer games. If you're a competitor, doesn't matter when your game is, you want to win. So he was kind of my voice of reason. He helped me out with subbing and working that flow. And then we got a new JV coach. Wyatt Jones was a fresh soft coach. He actually played for me a few years ago, and now he's our JV coach. And he's still a young guy, but he's got a great flexible schedule, and he knows the game. He knows what we expect. So he's a great buffer between me and the kids, because he can kind of soften that blow when I start to get onto him, because he's experienced it already, so he can kind of translate that message, because sometimes it doesn't come out, the exact way you're trying to say it. But he's a great translator, I guess I could say, for between me and the kids. And Wyatt was our fresh soft coach, one of our fresh soft coaches last year. So we filled that spot with Tyler Simple. He had coached at Effingham a few years ago and had to move his wife's job. And then, so now they're back, and we picked him back up. And then Alex Bonoff coached for us last year, but he's working on his master's and is extending his family. They had another baby, so he had to step back. And we filled that with Chet Went. He was an Effingham grad, quite a few years ago, mid 2000s. And so he played a little bit then, and now he's back trying to get back to the program as well at that level.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's next.
We've got the same staff coming back. Craig Toller's the JV coach. He helped me out for a couple of years at Sullivan as well. So it's nice having, we know each other. He kind of knows what I'm thinking before I say it. He's good at going over to guys and having those conversations with them. Maybe when they're struggling or something like that. He has a different way to say the same thing that I'm saying, but he has a different way to, get through to him. Dave Prummer's our fresh soft coach, and Dave is great. He's me not being from this area, Dave knows everybody, knows everybody's family, knows everybody's grandma, grandpa, so it's nice having Dave to be able to, kind of let me know what's going on in the community, let me know what's going on in kids' lives and that I may not know. And Dave's a great positive guy. He kind of makes he's quick to, he can play devil's advocate. He doesn't just say yes and no. He's great in that aspect. And Luke Ungren and Chris Ungren are volunteering. Chris probably won't be able to do quite as much this year because he's now the 8th grade coach at Sigel. But he's still on staff. But Luke is a great person to have. Kind of like what Obie was saying. Luke played for me, and he took his fair share of butt chewing, so he knows he can go over to guys and tell them it's going to be okay. Coach doesn't hate you. He's just trying to get the best out of you. And Luke's good at that. So we're fortunate to have the same staff coming back, and we're really excited about what those guys do. I love our staff. They do incredible things, a lot of things behind the scenes, and we wouldn't have the success that we have without them.
Sure. All right, Cody.
Yeah, I'll follow that right on there with the success, these guys and what they do. Like I said, they're the unsung heroes of the team, so I've got the same staff coming back as well. Caleb Meddy, be our JV coach. He's been with me now all 10 years. So he probably knows me as well as anybody. The only one that might know me better is my wife. So he's, the guy that, like these guys said, the voice of reason. He's great at playing devil's advocate and giving me maybe sometimes what I don't want to hear, but it helps me see it in a different way, in a different light. And also tell me in a way that I actually listen to it as opposed to maybe tune it out. So he's been phenomenal for us. Started off as our fresh off coach, so he's understands what it takes to be successful at that level as well, and how to build a program. Like I said, Caleb does a ton there for me. Then I got Sean Drone. This will be his second year. He also, he comes from Altamont, which played his last few years there for John Niebergy. So he brings a lot of understands, defensively and kind of what it means to be a part of a program and to have the hard-nosed coach go about it as well. So he's a young guy there who's kind of learning the ropes, but does a great job of talking to the kids and, like these guys said, being that buffer for us as well. And then third guy there on the staff, or the fourth guy, is Ben Gertz. Ben actually high school teammate of mine and a good friend of mine there. He played college basketball, coached some varsity basketball there a few years ago, has done some reffing, still does a little bit of reffing, but Ben brings a lot of that experience to the staff and can see things again in a different way. And he does a great job of teaching the game to those younger kids. Having a fresh off coach like that really does wonders for guys whenever you want to bring them up early or by the time they get to you as juniors and seniors, they're going to know how to play and how we want to play.
All right. Thanks, guys. Mike, anything else that we need to touch on before we let these guys go? We've had them on the line for
just
an
look
hour.
to see it, like I said, look forward to seeing them this week. It's always fun, just to watch. I don't watch games like most people, I don't watch, I'll watch coaches on the sideline, how they interact, how they do things. I'll watch, so I look at a game differently. A lot of people say, oh, no, that's not what was going on. You got to know some things. So I'm looking forward to watching these guys again. I've seen them all, done games with them on the radio. So that's the fun part, makes the winter fly by and miss high school basketball. So I'm ready to roll.
Yep. We're looking forward to this week and all three of your teams being at that St. Anthony tournament, and wish you all luck with these first few games. I know it's kind of a whirlwind. You get thrown right into the fire, but it tells you a lot about your teams getting those games underway right away. And we're gonna have a lot of fun following you all year long. So Mike and I are probably gonna chat a little bit longer, I think, but we give you guys all a chance to go ahead and log off if you want, unless you want to listen to us talk about other crap, but I don't think you do. I think you probably want to get on with your evening. So thanks everybody for taking the time. We really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having us on, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, see you guys this week.
Yep. All right. That's been Obie Farmer from Effingham, Cody Rincker from St. Anthony, Chet Reeder from Teutopolis, all the boys basketball coaches in our immediate area. So they're gonna drop out of the call, and Mike will take care of a little bit more here, but I don't know how deep into anything we want to get. But
well, I think our St. Anthony Teton girls are both still unbeaten, I believe.
So
St. Anthony's 2-0.
And that's something I wanted to talk about with St. Anthony. St. Anthony, yeah, they got a couple wins. They beat Diedrich and they beat Sandoval.
Right.
And, nothing terribly surprising about them winning those games necessarily. But I want to talk about a young lady by the name of Nancy Ruhal, because she came out with a bang in her first varsity game. She scored 17 points against Diedrich, and then followed that up, got into double figures against
Vonderheid's played well too. I mean,
she scored 12 points against Diedrich and then got 22 against Sandoval.
Yeah.
They had 4 double-figure scores in that Sandoval game. Lucy Fearday, it's weird because she scores 17, she scores 14. She's the third person to get mentioned, right? Like it's because that's what you expect from her, for better or worse. And something else to mention about Lucy, it hasn't, and I think I'm safe to say this. I don't think it's like some sort of a state secret, but we saw that Cameron Rios was going to UIC to play softball. We've seen that Abby Hatton is already publicly committed to going to Eastern to play softball. Abby's only a junior, but she's already made that commitment. Lucy's, I asked Lucy if she was what her plans were because I hadn't seen any official signing picture in the newspaper or anything like that. And she said she's going to go play at Lakeland. She just isn't going to do the big signing. She just didn't feel like doing that, but she's going to go play softball there. So that's not surprising. You knew she was going to go play somewhere.
Right.
That's good for her, but she's a heck of an athlete, just good at whatever she does. And
Good
basketball is what she's doing right now. So St. Anthony's off to a great start. And you mentioned T-Town. They beat Mount Vernon 60-55 in their opener, and beat Carterville in the opener at their tournament, and got their top scoring from 2 different kids. Kaylee Nieberge scored 29 points in that first game against Mount Vernon, and then Emily Conkle turns around and gives you 18 in the Carterville game, and that's 18 out of 44 points. So she did a bulk of the scoring there.
And Emily's another kid, like I said, she signed to go to Eastern and play softball.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Another good athlete in the area. And now I did not see a score from yesterday. Didn't they play yesterday also?
I haven't seen anything from yesterday. They are in a tournament. I assume there was probably some action for them. I couldn't say for certain, but and I'm still getting in this. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm still getting in the swing of like looking to see what anybody was doing. But Lori talked a little bit. Lori Thompson, the Teutopolis coach, talked a little bit about how you're going to have to figure out where the scoring comes from, and then right away you get 29 points from Kaylee in that first game, and you think that's pretty nice, but then it's got to be even nicer for her to only score 7 the second game, and yet you get another win and you have somebody else step up. So that's
it was the props girl she talked about that's a sophomore, I think, had a nice game too.
Yeah, she scored 10 points. She scored 10 points against Mount Vernon. Now she didn't figure into the scoring against Carterville, so I don't know, things happen, I don't know exactly what the situation there was, but yeah, it was good for her to get into double figures right off the bat also. So Effingham and Diedrich played on Friday, and if you give me a minute, I can figure out how that one went too. I forgot about that one because it's that rare Friday night girls game, so I was kind of
Effingham won that game.
Yeah. But it'll still be interesting to see how things shake out with Effingham a little bit as far as where they get their contributions from too. We talked about it last week, and I think it's safe to say, we got those 3 girls coaches that we talked to all have solid teams, and there's going to be a lot of good things to talk about.
Sure.
As the year goes on. And somebody else I wanted to mention, we don't have to get into a complete dissection of all the girls' games from the week, but actually a couple things I wanted to bring up. Obviously Grace Nelson, we're going to say her name a lot. She scored 37 in their first game. She's then scored 32 in their second game. So for Altamont, she's already scored almost 70 points, and they played 2. That's just how it goes with Nelson. And she's special. She's still only a junior. You'll have to forgive us if we don't do backflips every time she scores 30 points, because quite frankly, it's just what she does, right? But also, Neoga's got a girl, Sydney Richards, who scored 18 points in their first game, and that was notable because she got up over 1,000 in that game.
Got her 1,000 point.
Yeah, and that's always a nice milestone. I mean, it happens more because you have more kids that see freshmen and
Time at a younger level.
varsity experience, but it's still an accomplishment. I mean, you don't want to understate how what it takes to get that done. So Sydney's she's a good player. She's a good kid. Just got a good head on her shoulders. The funny thing about, and I went to that game, that was at Neoga against Central A&M. They got a 53-40 win. And the first bucket she made that wasn't a free throw, she drove in, switched hands, and put it up with her left. And she's not a left-handed kid, but she just hit a little teardrop with the left hand in the lane. And that's high school kids
Nice
don't
tool.
do that.
That's a nice tool to have.
High school kids don't do that. So she's that's good for her. Very nice to see. You had CHBC get a couple of wins to get the season started. Brownstown St. Elmo a couple of wins to get the season started. So we're off and running, and girls will be playing.
Was it Brownstown St. Elmo beat CHBC? Somebody beat CHBC.
Did they beat CHBC?
Or is it Central A&M?
No, it must have been CHBC won a couple of games. They beat South Central and they beat Central A&M. Brownstown St. Elmo beat Cumberland and they beat Litchfield. That's the 2 wins for Brownstown St. Elmo.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's, those are the things I wanted to make sure we got out there,
Before we touch on a few national things, I have an announcement.
Let's hear it.
Our friends at Joe's Pizza and Pizza Man, I've reached out to the Trupianos and Mr. Addis, and they will be renewing their sponsorship deal for the Attaboy of the Week.
Well, very good.
So we probably have a couple kids we have to catch up with at the end of last year when it got hectic in the spring.
Yeah.
But they're going to provide us with a nice $10 gift card for the kids, either to go to Pizza Man or Joe's. And, we're staying under IHSA levels, which may be changing. I think that's the biggest thing, that NIL thing is going to actually increase, because I think it was Rochester a few years ago, one of the years they won state football, got in trouble. A couple of kids had to set out the next year because of their rings exceeded what is an allowable gift. Really? So I think that's the biggest thing you're seeing with high school with this NIL, is maybe kind of increasing what can be given to a kid as a gift. But we are under the levels. We've checked with all pertinent athletic directors before we started this program.
Yeah. So we didn't do any pre-discussion on this show about anybody from this last week that we wanted to give.
No, and that's fine. We can always catch up and add one, but
yeah, I think so. That's probably what we'll do. We'll have a little, we'll powwow, and then maybe next week we'll have a couple of to throw at you.
I didn't get to watch much of the Illinois game. I kind of had it on my phone, but I was driving back and forth to a birthday party in Forsyth. So
yeah,
I didn't get to see the controversial calls in the second half. I did see Brett Bielema was livid at halftime.
Oh, we're talking football.
I didn't get to hear what that was. Was it something about having to come out of the locker room sooner than they wanted to, or something?
The football game, I'm afraid I have very limited insight into, because I wasn't around. I was out in my yard getting all the leaves taken care of finally yesterday. So after a pretty busy morning, I was outside all day. So I can't speak to it. I was surprised to see it was that close, honestly.
Well, he came out in his post-game interview and he said some rather pointed things at the officiating, which debatable. I saw one call where an Illinois receiver was being pulled down while he was trying to catch the ball with one hand, and the national announcers go, they're both fighting for the ball. I don't see anything there. And I don't understand that when you reach with one hand and this other hand and your shoulder pad are being pulled to the ground. I don't understand that. And I'm not an Illinois fan, but I saw a couple of calls that I felt like didn't.
The problem, if I can speak from a point of ignorance as far as things that happened yesterday, but still having followed the team some this year, is that yesterday's game turned into a game that Illinois really needed to win. And you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place, because you should have been able
Exactly right.
to get, I mean, Michigan State and Purdue the 2 weeks before, were games that you shouldn't have lost both of them. I don't think, if you're really a team that's, dead set on your playing in the Big Ten championship, well, you shouldn't have put yourself in a position where you needed to beat Michigan, right? Like, I mean, that's
right. No, it was just the whole idea that I just felt like, I don't know. I hate to see that happen anytime the quote favorite darling of a conference, or you see it in football, you see it everywhere, starts getting,
well,
as you perceive as calls. And sometimes you're looking at it through rosy colored glasses. I don't know. But as someone who had no skin in the game, I was shocked that that wasn't called. And then, it is what it is. Well, but you're right. They shouldn't have been in that position.
As far as national announcers go, I mean, I'm going to just say that there's two teams in the conference that anybody outside of the conference gives a shit about, right? Like, I mean, that's, so they're going to be obviously a little invested in Michigan winning a game, whether they want to say it or not. That's the team that's the team that they're there to see, right? Like, they're not, and you don't have to like it, and you probably shouldn't like it as a fan of any other team besides Michigan or Ohio State, but that's what the league is for football anyway.
It is. College basketball, I got to see. I stayed up Friday night. Well, stayed up. They tipped off at 8:30, 8:50.
A little late.
Watched Illinois and UCLA. And I'll tell you what, I knew a person who was at the game, and I think UCLA was up 15 at one point in that second half. And I almost texted them and said, hey, you were right. UCLA was going to beat them. And then Brad Underwood's kind of morphing into the old Brad Underwood when he was at where was he? Because he was at Oklahoma State a year, and then he came to Illinois. Where was he at before there?
Brad Underwood before Oklahoma State, Stephen F. Austin.
Stephen F. Austin. He was very up-tempo, very pressy. Tried to do it his first year at Illinois, and I failed miserably.
Well,
but went to some scramble things, and Sincere, what's his last name?
Harris.
And Sincere Harris. That's what I was going to say, but I was afraid to. He turned that game around. I think UCLA had like 4 or 5 straight possessions. They didn't get the ball over half court.
Well, that's the thing. Illinois
Illinois's got some athletes. They really do. And I watched them today, and it was the same problem of the Illinois in the past. When the game isn't up and down flow, let's go, show our athletes running and gunning, they at times struggle. And they did today.
I watched the first half today, listened to most of the second half on the way to my daughter's pitching lesson. It was tied when we got out of the car with about 5.5 minutes to go in the second half. And then obviously went downhill from there. But yeah, I talked to Obie jumped on this call pretty early. So he and I chatted about it a little bit and he was able to watch it, and sounded like maybe shot selection was not great down the stretch for
Illinois. But again, that's been their problem. They get in that half-court quagmire, and they don't have, in my opinion right now, a person who can get the ball and create a quality shot, okay? They got some kids that can do some things. The Shannon kid I really like. But remember, Illinois fans, he's never had a healthy season in his college career.
Well,
I like a lot of things I see. He had a hell of a game against UCLA.
Yeah, sure.
But he's got to stay healthy all year for you.
The good thing.
But Indiana's the same issue. When they're not doing this up and down, when it becomes a half-court game, like there was a couple of possessions, questionable things they did against Xavier in their win, and it turned into a half-court game at the end.
As Big Ten teams, once you get into league play and you're not playing UCLA anymore, you're not playing Xavier anymore, are you going to have opponents that are willing to get into that kind of game, or are a lot of them going to turn into the slog that the league seems to sort of pride itself on being sometimes?
They enjoyed the slog fest.
It's not what wins. It's not what wins in March, though. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Not very often, at least. So
Well, you're right.
I'd like
Well,
to.
Illinois got who they got? They got somebody big coming up here.
You put me on the spot.
Who do they have in the ACC Big Ten Challenge?
They've got an ACC team in the ACC Big Ten Challenge.
And a boy, that's why you're in charge of production, Whitey.
Well, Syracuse is who they play.
Okay, that's right. They got Syracuse. Indiana's got North Carolina.
Yeah, Illinois still got to play. They got a game against Texas coming up too. That's let's see, that's still a couple weeks down the road, but that's one of their other marquee matchups left on the schedule. And
I think Illinois' first conference game they go to, or Indiana's first conference game they go to Rutgers, which they always say, "Oh, you can't go to the RAC," but it sounds like Rutgers has some kids hurt. So
yeah, it's I'd like to see that style of play that Illinois and Indiana like to do. I'd like to see it become more pervasive in the league, because I just think that's kind of basketball that's going to succeed more, in the postseason, in the tournament. And as a league, you should want your teams to be able to go and not disappoint, because that's what happens a lot of times, is you have these highly touted Big Ten teams, and then they can't play the game that they've been playing for 2.5 months, and they struggle. Maybe that's just an excuse, maybe it's a cop out, but I think there's a little something to it. So we'll see. But yeah, the Illini are good. Indiana's good. I think Illinois, even though they lost today, I think they probably answered some questions about.
Well, and here's the thing: they lost to a very good team.
Yeah,
I mean, Virginia's a top 10 team. That's the thing. It's going to be a fun Big Ten season as long as kids stay healthy.
Yep, and that's the thing. I mean, they've got a lot of kids too, so they, if they have some injuries, they already have an injury. Because the Goody guy, that kid would be starting. If I think he'd be starting if he were healthy, and he's got the foot injury. So they've already made some changes. The only thing I will say is that, and I'm not 100% sure how much I really enjoy it, is that every year you kind of have to get to know like 7 or 8 new guys. There's just not a lot of continuity to a college basketball program anymore. And that's a conversation you and I have had here before, but I think that's just probably the way it is and the way it's going to be.
Stephen Bardo said something today that I don't think people realize. He was doing the Indiana game, and Indiana had, they talk about their second 10 coming in, and it was in the last 10 minutes. Jordan Geronimo hadn't played a lot, and he came in and he was blocking shots everywhere, running the floor. And Stephen said, the thing is, some of these young kids are getting a lot of time early because they're blowouts. I mean, they're in the rotation. Indiana's got a couple nice freshmen, but there's other kids. But pretty soon those rotations are going to start drying up.
Sure.
And minutes are going to dry up. When you've got so much depth like Illinois and Indiana both have, oh my God, look at all. We got 12 kids who can play. We got 10 kids who can play. Well, you don't when it comes crunch time. And I think that's one of the big things you're going to see is what teams can handle it chemistry-wise and not have, Joey 3-star sitting on the bench pouting out because he ain't playing.
Yeah.
And some places it doesn't go over very well. Indiana had a point guard the last couple of years that didn't get to play much. And I know his mom even took to Twitter and was blasting why he was. And when he got in, he was terrible because he was overmatched.
Yeah, it's a different world for sure. It's just never going to be that way again. So I guess you got to adapt.
Well, and Chet said it tonight. Yeah, we got a lot of kids who can play, but we're not going to have 12 kids, seeing the floor in rotation. So,
Yep.
and that's the thing. It's very important to have the chemistry. And sometimes you got seniors that don't get a lot of time, and you got to find a way to keep them from becoming a problem.
Well, and I think it's easier to preach at the high school level, that just because you're not out there on the floor, a whole bunch during the actual games, it doesn't mean that you aren't contributing. It doesn't mean that you aren't part of the success. It's just
I agree with you to a point, but in the college,
well,
you don't have to deal with parents and their what they can do. In the high school, you do.
You do. I mean,
A lot. Unfortunately, you have high school coaches losing their jobs every year because primarily of the 8, 9, 10, or 11 kid on the bench who mom and dad think he should be playing, and well, you're costing my kid going to get a scholarship to Duke, and you're not playing him because you're a dumbass, and
Yeah, I mean,
trust me.
that's a fair point. I mean, and it's worse some places than others, and
Mm-hmm.
and especially, I mean, we don't have to get into it, but small school politics are a thing. Certain people carry a lot of influence in a small town sometimes, and it can be a real problem. Well, Mike, we've been going for like an hour and a half, and I can sense it. I can sense it behind that closed door back there. There's activity. There's people saying
Waiting activity for you to be involved in.
Well, activity for like trying to get people calm down and go to bed.
See, I feel bad. I broke down and started having some more of my popcorn that I was eating pre-show, but I was getting kind of hungry.
Well, I mean,
I hadn't had supper, Whitey.
90
We
minutes.
run
is
a
long
late.
time
We
to sit
run on
around
a late.
talking.
We run a late shift on Sundays in this house.
Yeah. Well, we do appreciate all those coaches coming on, though. It's always great to.
That's good.
And they don't have to do that, I don't know. There's probably no or very little real benefit they get from it, but it's great for us.
Well, and I'll tell you something, and they want to be on here because one of the coaches had a conflict with wife had something going on tonight, and I was volunteering my 2 girls to babysit. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull this off, blah blah blah. And then I get a text later, mother-in-law was going to come over and watch the kids, so that's awesome. So they want to be on here.
Well, I appreciate them going to that much trouble because
and I do too.
And
I was going to send the babysitting bill to you as you're part of the budget, but then we didn't have to do that.
I do. I'm glad I dodged that bullet because my wall's pretty empty all the time. You know what I'm saying? I got 2 little kids. It all goes to them. I don't. I start.
Yeah. Wait till they're older.
We're getting there already. Trust me. The fifth graders starting to get pretty expensive. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's enough of that. We'll have some games, some boys games and some girls games to talk about next week. Some boys games that I've seen personally. I know do a couple on the radio anyway.
We got to figure out who I got to figure out my guests next week. I haven't looked that far into the future yet.
Yeah. We'll look forward to seeing what you can scrounge up, but at any rate, we'll have some ball to talk about, so that'll be good. All right, Mike, you better get something to eat, man.
Oh, it is. Popcorn's only so much.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
See you, bud.